Hey there, welcome back to Where Process Meets Application. I'm your host, Chanda-Louise. This is part 2 of episode 2 with Erwin Rodriguez. Into this whole concept or theme that I have of reflection, so that makes sense. So let's
Sure.
pull it
Yep.
together. So
Yep.
I'm curious, through this process, have there been any patterns that you've noticed about yourself when you're going through this process? What are the
Pat.
patterns that you notice? Like, and then by patterns, like how you show up in a good way, how you show up in a bad way, like what have you noticed anything?
Right. I noticed that for me, my pattern is unless I have a healthy internal life,
Mm, okay.
my external life is affected. So in other words, the pattern for me is that I have to fill my tank every day. Every day it's kind of like a choice to reset. Or
Okay.
and it's not, it's more than just going on vacation because while yeah, we go on vacation, but we still are filled with anxiety and filled with turmoil even while we're on vacation. And so you hear that a lot from people that are wanting to get away. They're wanting to kind of escape,
Yeah.
um, and it has a lot to do with the fact that their internal life is in turmoil. So there's kind of like this internal, the rhythm of their lives is not set up in a way where they're resetting and right, that
Ah,
they're giving those moments, they're setting aside moments of reflection, which is what you talked about. So for me, that pattern of setting aside moments of reflection, setting aside moments where I'm filling my internal tank. And for many people it's going to be different depending on your depending on your spiritual bent. Whether if you're a follower of Jesus, then your internal filling it's going to be going to church, reading the word, prayer, meditation, right, all those things that kind of like just refill you. That's going to be, at least for me, that's going to be a pattern that uh, will have to be just happening on a continual basis. For
okay.
other people, it might for other people it might be reading. It might be walking, going for walks, like things that kind of put you in that rested state.
Okay.
Things that kind of put you in that calm, that peaceful, that state where you're not restless, right? Because I
Okay,
have
so you're not feeling anxious.
right, you're not feeling anxious. I have yet to meet someone that comes up with brilliant ideas because they're under a lot of stress. You
Wow.
know,
That's a really okay.
you
So
know.
so so you're countering, essentially you're saying that when you're at peace inside, internally, you're not feeling anxious, leads to creativity.
Yeah,
That leads to creativity.
100%. That for me, that has been the pattern in my life. Is that I find moments of just great ideas, ingenuity,
Ah,
creativity when it's not when I'm busy, but it's actually when I'm at peace. It's
wow.
actually it's actually when and you find that, and again, if I take a page from scripture, you find that where the disciples and Jesus are having this tremendous day of ministry. They're killing it. People are coming from all over. They're casting out demons. They're bringing value uh, uh, to people that have been rejected, to people that have been thrown to the side, and they're just busy doing good things. That's
Okay.
the key. They're busy doing good things, but they're busy to such a degree doing amazing good things that they're not giving. They're not. There's a word that we use today. It's called self care, right? We use that word now.
Yeah.
They're busy doing good things, noble things, valuable things, but they're neglecting their own self care. They're neglecting their own
Oh, okay.
refilling. And so I love this story because Jesus in this moment, it's like, you got all this awesome stuff going on. So, like any of us, because we're productive individuals and we're kind of like, if you're a if you're a driven individual, then you would take all this success and you would say, how can we make more success? We got
Right.
all this awesome stuff happening. How can we do more of it? Jesus doesn't do that. Jesus takes the opposite effect. He says, hey, look at all this awesome stuff that you guys did. Now I want you to press pause. I want you to stop.
Okay.
I want you to stop, and now I want you to get away with me. And I want you to come with me and just get along with me. Let's calm the voices down. You want to be that much more powerful, then you're going to have to learn how to put in place these patterns of just pressing pause. Patterns of pressing pause is probably the best way I can describe it. That could be memorable
Okay.
for anybody. It's just having a pattern in your life where you're going to press pause. No matter how awesome things are going, Chanda, the temptation is going to be, man, I
Let's
am
keep
killing it
going.
right now. Let's keep going. Let's not stop. I know we're on 60 hours. What's one more hour? The temptation is going to be, let's keep going. And so Jesus had to come in and had to shut it down.
That is so interesting. I say that because this morning, well, was it this morning? So I've challenged myself to be more consistent on my social media post. So I try to post at least one post a day, Monday through Friday. And I have all my other stuff that I have to do, work, etc., etc. So my mom had surgery this past week, and I've
Mm,
been her caretaker, which, it's, if anybody has ever done anything like that, it's very exhausting to
yeah,
say the least.
sure.
And last night I was lecturing this morning, I think at 9, and I still had my social media post to create, and it was about 11:30. And as I started to try to update my lecture notes, I just said, "All right, Chanda, I think you're done." Right? Like, I think you are just done. And I literally couldn't go anymore. I mean, I could push myself a little bit, but I just said, you know
Sure.
what? I think the best thing for me to do at this point is just go to sleep.
Yeah.
I hadn't finished the notes, I hadn't posted any social media, but I just kind of had to just be like, look, you've been through a lot this week, and you've got to press
Right.
pause.
Right. Giving
And I
yourself
mean,
permission to do that.
yeah, yeah,
And I think that it's so important. If we want to be at our most creative, then you have to first of all, you have to know yourself and know your own patterns of you know of busyness, your
right,
own patterns of business. And the thing is that we all have a tendency to be busy, but being busy doesn't mean being productive. It just means that
right.
we're filling our time with something, and it's not always the most productive. It's not always the most valuable. It'll be on something that doesn't, it's just something to do. And then that's one aspect of it. Another aspect of it is that we're doing so many good things, we're doing so many valuable things that it becomes the reason why we are um, we're running ourselves ragged. We're running ourselves into the ground because what we're doing is so valuable and so important. But we don't see that without you, you're not here. Here's the whole point that Jesus is trying to make. You're not infinite.
Ah,
You're not. You're
okay,
not. You're not all.
understood.
You're not all powerful. You're not
Yeah.
all knowing. You're not all present. That
Mm,
means that in you, I have put in humanity the desire to press pause. And if they
mm,
do not press pause, right, that's why he's given us a day of
yeah.
rest, right? And if you do not press pause, you will see the effects of that. You will see the effects of that on your own world and your own self, and you will see the effects of that in others around you that are around you. You know, and it affects your creativity. It affects your ability to write. It affects your ability. If you're a songwriter, it affects your ability to write good songs. Right? I joke about it, but it's at some point it stops being a joke. But there was a time where my output in songwriting and writing was bananas. I was doing it every day, and
Mm,
again, I I I I put that on hold because fatherhood came in, right? I became a dad. The busyness of wanting to be responsible came in, and all those things are very, very important. And I'm not saying that we should, be irresponsible. We should be responsible with the things that we have to do, but we should also make time to go back to some of those things um,
mm,
where that gives us the most peace And out of that piece, and I love the story of Albert Einstein. He would have these eureka moments in physics. He would have these eureka moments in physics when he would be doing things that had nothing to do with physics. He would be doing things like riding his bicycle. You know,
I like
he
that.
he would be doing something that's completely opposite of his rhythm. It would be in and because he's the type of guy that would use his mind a lot, right? He would have to find something physical to rest his mind. And part of pressing pause for some of us might be that. If you're a person that uses your mind, then find something physical for you to do that gives your mind rest. If you're somebody that is physical, then find something that puts your body at rest and uses your mind a little bit. I'm always using my mind, so I'm like, man, I need to shut this thing off. And so for me, my wife will tell you, if I don't go running, I'm a very, very mean person.
Okay.
If I don't go, in other words, after a certain point, if I'm not exerting myself physically and giving my mind some rest,
Yeah.
I'm just really moody. I'm not creative. I'm not kind. I'm
Oh,
not
okay.
tolerant. So, in other words, the worst of me comes out.
So then what I'm getting from you is, for you, when it comes to patterns, what you've noticed is that when you internally are not at peace or anxious, that affects your output of creativity. Along with that, you're mentioning that we also need to have a set we need to know our own busy patterns, right?
Yep.
So we need to
Yep.
know and understand what patterns we have in terms of business and being busy. Recognize that and also take breaks and have a pause. And those breaks and pause are not only in the worst times, but actually also needed in the best times.
They
So
need it in the best times. Yep.
when we're functioning, whether it's low or high, we still need internally to take a pause.
Yep.
And that pause is where creativity is sparked. And then the other are, let's say, an analytic person, try something
Hmm.
artistic. If
Yep.
you're artistic, so try something analytic. If you're always like me on the computer, go
Yep.
outside and do something physical.
Go for
Getting
a
out
nature
of
walk. Yep.
our norm then also allows us to spark creativity.
Yep,
All
absolutely.
right.
I've seen that work time and time again in my own personal life. And to add one last thing, in the real sense, in the real world sense, again, I used
Yeah.
to be a church planner for a recovery church, and one of the things that was eye opening to me was when one of when one of our friends used to say that whenever he would have these high moments of feeling as if like things are going great,
Yeah.
and in other words, he would find himself where his emotions would be like just like really either really excited, just these extreme feelings of just excitement, fulfillment, all this stuff, right? He says in that moment he knew that he needed to make a meeting.
He needs to make a meeting.
He needed to make a meeting. In other words, he needed to go to an NA.
Ah,
He needed to go to an NA meeting. He needed to go to a recovery meeting
oh,
because he
wow.
he would be steps away from using. He would be steps away.
Really?
Yeah, because of the extremeness of emotions that he would feel, this sensation of like invincible,
Mm.
kind of like this narcissistic feeling of like I can take over and conquer the world.
Oh
And you
my gosh.
and you see that, but you see that in our society today. Entertainers, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They're the most creative people. Like to talk a little bit about today's in today's news cycle of entertainers with Little Nas, right? So you've seen the shoe
Yeah.
that came out, right? So I love. Let me tell you something. I I have a passion for people that are like that. I
Oh
have.
man. Okay. Okay. So what's your feeling on it? Because I started to watch the video, and my nephew was just like, Shanna, what are you doing? Watching this video. And then I was just like, I was like, okay. So I stepped back because I like to censor what I watch. So I didn't watch the whole
Sure.
thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I,
But
I haven't seen it
I
yet.
don't know. What Okay, so what
I
are your
haven't.
thoughts?
I haven't
What are your
seen
thoughts?
that. I haven't seen it yet. I probably won't watch it, but I see what I always see in anyone like that is someone that is
Mm.
screaming to be accepted and to be loved. Um,
Oh, wow.
I don't,
Okay.
and
Okay.
I have to use my creativity to
Okay.
say that.
All right.
I and that at its basic, at its most human basic form, every creative person has the longing to be loved, accepted, belonging, and they'll use whatever creativity that they have, whether it's music, art, whatever, to basically scream to the world that you do not give me this. And because you do
Oh,
not give me this, I'm going to take it. And this is my vehicle and how I can take it. And so
wow.
you see that, and again, I used to work in the music industry, so I have a passion for people that are artistic and creatives. In fact, I'm drawn to them. I'm curious about them, and that's why I don't judge them. I love them, and because of the emotional extremes that most of them go through, and you
Right.
see that a lot, right? You see that a lot. Like they're just so extremely creative. They're able to tap into a part of the human emotion, and because of that extreme that extreme reflection that they go through to tap into that, um, you know, they don't have a spiritual anchor, right? And
That's so interesting. You
they don't
think?
have a spiritual anchor, so they end up flying off the rails. And so, and then that's nothing different. That's nothing new, Chanda. This is not nothing new is under the sun. Like if you're a reader of the Bible and you find yourself in the Book of Psalms, the Book of Psalms are no walk in the park. You got David talking about how miserable he is, how abandoned he feels,
Right.
how lonely he feels. How like his tears become he drinks his tears or they become food to him. So you see all this imagination, this creativity in this young man that the Bible calls a man after God's own heart. And why is that important? Is because if he was after his own heart, he would be ruined. He would
Mm,
be, um, shipwrecked.
yeah.
So he needs to have a different compass. And his compass is, you know what? I'm going to go after God's heart. I'm not going
Ooh.
to go after mine because my heart is lacking. It's empty. It's broken. It's never fulfilled. It's never satisfied. If I allow that to be the vehicle of my life, you'll get a little Nas, is what you'll get. So,
Okay, so let, let
sure,
me pull this into it back into this the realm of business because I've
sure.
got one really good I got a lot of good takeaways actually. The thing that I think was resonating with me, to be honest, with what you're talking about as it pertains to this anchor, I think is in regards to burnout and being really successful. You
Yeah,
know, when you're, for instance, in business, I've experienced it where I've done something and it's gone really well, right? And I'm
yeah.
like on an emotional high. The
You're an
question is
emotional high.
then,
Yeah.
right. And then at that point, what do we typically do once we've reached that peak? You know what I mean? Like what's the next step? And then also when we get burned out, you're burned out, you are run to the ground, you've ran to the ground or you feel run to the ground. What do? And to me, from my takeaway with our discussion is that the best way to harness both of those instances, rather than just keep on going, is to actually intentionally take a pause.
Hmm.
So take that pause with the highs, take the pause
Yep.
with the lows,
Yep.
and
Yep.
reset intentionally all the time.
Yep, be resetting. One of my favorite things that I see in some really awesome CEOs out there, is those CEOs that are intentionally doing that.
Okay.
They just have they have a disciplined lives in terms of how they operate their internal life.
I like
um,
that.
and that's what makes them really successful. It's not so much about you know how they're strategic or how their business model is. It's really just the fact that they're able to get a handle on their internal life. They're able to kind of discipline the chaos on the inside enough to where they're able to now harness all their creativity, all their skill sets,
Right.
and just cause some really awesome things to happen in the world. And if you look at a lot of these CEOs, like a Bill Gates or what's the other guy? Can't think of his name right now. Steve Jobs.
Okay.
Uh, and you and you just kind of examine some of their rhythms and some of their patterns and what they would do to kind of fill their tank and to reset. And you know, you would see how important it is for them. But then that's another thing too, is to just to remember that you're not infinite. To
Yeah.
remember, to always remember that you're not all knowing, you're not infinite, you're not all powerful, you're not all present. And so because you inherently have limitations on you, then it's going to be important for you to put in your life, in your daily life, those moments of where you press pause, and those moments where you take a break, you reset, and you either do it willingly, or you're going to find yourself. I'm telling you, you either do it willingly, or you're going to find yourself having to do it because you're forced to,
Okay.
and because you're going into rehab and you have no choice. I'm being honest. I'm being honest, and
You're not
again,
lying. I agree.
and
I've
I've seen it.
experienced.
Right. And you're going into rehab because you have no choice, and you're going into therapy. And then the thing is, like, I applaud anyone that goes into therapy. Sometimes when you talk about therapy, it has like negative tones to it, right? Negative connotations to it. There's almost like a stigma. Wow, what?
Yeah.
You're in therapy and you don't
What's
understand,
wrong with you?
but
Nothing.
but the thing is though, it's actually the opposite. It actually means that you are wanting to
Yeah.
find wholeness. You know, you're want to find and to find new tools and new skill sets to be at peace. Like, you know, having someone now to come in that is not living within your skin, and to kind of
Right.
be objective, and to help you now manage the unmanageable in your life. So, and then they can see it. They can see what's unmanageable, and they can see, oh, and they can kind of like come at it in a very simplistic way. They're like, hey, you should just do this, and your life will be better. And for us, we're like, what do you mean?
What are
You
you
know,
talking about?
what are you talking about? But that's the beauty. That's the beauty of having access to other people in your world that will give you those insights. Um, and it can easily kind of just see where you can make those small little changes in your
Hmm.
life, But yeah, but coming back to what you said, I think the important thing is just to have those moments where you're resetting, whether you're successful or not. They're going to be so valuable for you. Your creativity is going to depend on your ability to just find moments of peace and relaxation, and it goes beyond just vacation, because even in vacation you can still find reasons to work.
Right.
I can tell you that from experience. Like, I'm supposed to be on vacation, I'm still answering emails, or I'm still trying to process and figure something out while I'm on vacation. And so that's again, that's that drivenness that's inside of us, especially us like entrepreneurs and our creatives. We just have this drive.
Yeah.
We can't explain it. It's just we wake up with it. It kind of wakes us up in the morning and says, it kind of screams at us and says, okay, you got to get something done today. You know, you can't go another day without accomplishing. You can't go another day without checking off that in your checklist. And we have to, obviously there's a pro to those things, but then
Yeah.
the con is that we cut our lives so short. Um,
Ooh.
we cut our lives so short, and so it's just something that we always have to be conscious of. I love the CEOs, man, that I see. I used to work at before, when I was just graduating out of high school. One of the CEOs for the vitamin shop. I don't know if you've ever heard of the vitamin shop. The vitamin
I
shop.
have.
So the vitamin shop, before it was the successful thing like GNC, the vitamin shop only had like a few franchises. And at the time when I graduated high school, I was working in the headquarters for the vitamin shop. I was working in customer service, and it was literally this sort of like this blooming business, right? Health was becoming this sort of boom thing, and the vitamin shop was like in the cusp of that, and they only had like a small number of franchises, and there I was, just fresh out of high school, um, you know, I was taking a break from wanting to go. I didn't go to college right away. I went right into the job market, and one of the things that was impressioned into my mind was watching the CEO of the vitamin shop coming out, sitting down with the rest of the customer service agents and taking calls.
That's awesome.
Just
That's
understanding,
awesome.
taking calls with the rest of the company. And I was just, and it just like floored me. Like you're the CEO. This is all yours. Like, what are you doing coming down here with the rest of us? And and it just showed how he cared, right? It showed how curious he was, how he cared, and it really takes courage to do something like that because
Yeah.
he in your position you shouldn't have to do that, but he did that. And you know who does something like that? Elon Musk does stuff like that. That
Okay.
if you study Elon Musk and how he kind of like um, you know just inspires his workers to do like amazing things. And he's always, this again. Elon Musk is like this out of this world creative thinker, right? He's like he's on one hand he's creating functional things like automobiles, and on the other hand he's like creating like rocket ships. He's thinking about how can we get to Mars. You see what I'm saying? That's
I
crazy.
do.
That's
I
crazy.
do.
But then in one hand you see how he inspires his workers to do great things. You can't have a company like that unless you have workers that are just inspired by you. And so there is this scene. If you were to research Elon Musk, you will find that like he'll have like when his workers are working all hours, he'd be there with them at all hours, working with them. Like in other words, he cares about. He's not just preaching it, but he's actually doing what he preaches.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually something that's very important for just any boss is to, hey, it's one thing to tell people what to do, but it's quite a different thing when they actually watch you do it with them.
That's
And it
awesome.
really inspires people. So yeah,
Woo!
I, I
Okay.
said
All
I
right.
said I said a lot of stuff. I know I said a lot of stuff.
let's let's keep going. So I have just a few more questions that
All
I'll
right,
pull out
all right, cool,
because I
cool.
want to honor your time. I know that. So I mentioned already your husband, you're a father, you're a pastor, musician, you're an MBA student. You've got a lot going on simultaneously. Like, how do you navigate being in all those spaces?
Um, it's actually quite simple.
Okay.
It's simple and not simple at the same time. It's complicated and not complicated at the same time. It's understanding that I'm all those things.
Oh, I
And
like that.
yeah, I used to really fight. I used to really fight on wanting to be one thing, but then understanding that you're all those things. But it's really making up. It's really coming to terms and settling in your heart which one of those things are the most important to you. And that
Okay.
one thing is actually what kind of like this wonderful stream, right? It's this one beautiful stream that's powerful and beautiful and has so much resources, but it's this river that flows like streams. That's what I meant to say. It's this beautiful, powerful river, right? That has multiple streams going out of it. And so, but the question is, what is the stream? What is the one thing? And so for me, unless I have my internal life, my faith life, my
Got it.
thought life anchored to a greater love, a greater source, I can't be anything to anyone, you know?
Okay.
And it's actually because of my connection to that source, to that one river, is actually what now it's almost as if I'm given the freedom now to flow in all these different rivers.
Wow.
It's like sun, I've equipped you in all these different areas. um, I want you to go ahead and try any of these areas that you can try. And I love like again, you could kind of if you were to do a case study on individuals like David, right? So he was what, a king,
Yeah.
songwriter,
Yep.
you
A
know,
warrior,
a
a
warrior,
father,
a
brother.
father, right? So he was all those things, but it came from his faith.
Yeah, I
It came
did.
from his why. It came from that internal source that was um, the
A
main thing.
worshiper.
Right,
Yeah.
the one thing, right? So he writes in the psalm, "One thing have I desired, not a million and one things, just the one thing have I desired, and that is to and that is to dwell in the house of the Lord." Right?
Mm.
That one desire that he has is to be in fellowship with his Creator, and out of that one desire, he's able to now accomplish many desires of his heart. Right? We have, you will, delight yourself in the Lord, and you will what? You know,
He'll give you all the desires of your heart. Is that?
right? Yeah, delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart.
Of your
But that's the
heart.
thing, though. But here's the deal: when out of delighting yourself in something greater than yourself, is when your heart delights in something that's greater than yourself. Because the
Got it.
problem because the problem is that if you were to take that portion of scripture out of context and saying God is telling me that I can have that He will give you the desires of your heart. But the thing is, you have to understand something, that he's commanding you to first delight in him, so
Yeah.
that he can set your heart right. Um, and so back to your original question, how am I able to kind of like maneuver in all these different spaces? It's just knowing the right time and the right place, Chanda. The
Yeah.
right time and the right place, and knowing when that side of me is needed. All of us have those gift mixes, and then we just have to know when that side of you is needed. And it's not needed. All of those spaces are not needed at one time. It's just knowing when is the right time, where is the right place, and are you the right person? Is it the right time? Is it the right place? And are you the right person? So when you're asked to do something, then that side of you is needed, Chanda. This side of
Okay.
you is possibly, but you're bringing, that's all of you. So I don't separate all those individuals. That's all of me. And it all comes from my relationship with the source, with that river. As a worshiper, right? It comes out of that. If that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's
if that makes
really,
sense.
I
If that
mean,
makes
no,
any
it
sense.
does because you're saying essentially what really keeps you centered and focused is having your eyes on God internally. And through that anchor is what then flows through for you then to be able to operate in what's needed at the appropriate time. And
Yeah,
then with that
yeah.
also sounds like you're saying you have anchoring yourself on God allows you to have a mindset of abundance.
Right, and also you get the wisdom to know when to utilize some of these gift mixes that you have, and you can kind of see it played out. Again, I like to use scripture because I feel like it gives me a good view of how God uses, how God just uses us in the context of our world, and so you
Yeah.
see individuals like, for example, like Daniel, right? Daniel is probably a
Yeah.
good example where he was just considered smart, considered gifted, um, and yet he was possibly at the worst possible time of his life.
Yeah. It's in bondage.
He wasn't trying to be gifted. He wasn't
No.
trying to be smart. He wasn't trying to be any of those things. It was actually out of a necessity to survive. And it was out of a necessity to thrive in a world that was hostile to him. And the
Yeah.
only way he was able to function in all those roles is because he was connected to the source. And what did he do? He went back to retreating, man. He would go and pray 3 times a day, right? He would go back and he would reset every day. Can you imagine having to like have your name change, your identity change? Can you imagine like getting, your name is no longer Chand. I'm going to give you a new name now. This is your name. You know, this is your identity. And
Yeah.
we don't stop to think. We admire these individuals, but we don't see that they're not trying to be. They weren't trying to be world changers. They were in the worst possible scenarios of their lives. And but God is giving us the tools and the answers on how to utilize all these both these natural gifts and these supernatural gifts that God has given us. For those of you that are believers, you have your natural gifts that God has given you, regardless of whether you believe in Him or not, and then you have your supernatural gifts, which come as a result of a relationship with Jesus. comes through the Holy Spirit. You have these supernatural gifts that become activated, when they're needed. And so you can kind of see that play out in Daniel's life, where these supernatural gifts of answering dreams,
Right.
right, came into play at the right times when they were needed. And so, and I think for the purposes of your question, is just understanding when is the right time to utilize those gifts. Knowing when that side of you is needed. Yeah.
I like that. I'm going to take a little bit of that and expand on it just a little.
No, sure.
To the practical sense, where I can think about the experiences that we have, both professionally and personally, throughout our lives. And then basically those experiences being worth something, so
Yeah.
that at a time when it's needed, being
Yeah.
able to pull out of that toolbox and then utilize that skill.
Absolutely.
I love
There's
that.
nothing
Okay.
there. There's nothing wasted. I can tell you, there's
No.
nothing wasted, and everything is useful. Even our really bad experiences are useful.
Yeah. Woo, okay. All right, so Pastor Aaron, let me wrap this up. I
All
have
right,
one more question for you.
cool. Shoot it. Fire it at me.
Tell me about an expensive lesson that you learned in 2020. And it doesn't have to be monetary. What was an
An, ex-
expensive lesson?
an expensive lesson. Oh my.
It cost you something.
Yeah, it cost me something. I think that had I continued to invest in uh, continuing to invest in certain relationships with people
Okay.
that continuing to invest in relationships with individuals um, that I probably should have spent more time with. And
Oh,
yeah, I
okay.
think I think it's investing in more relationships is what, because what happened with, and I'm sure a lot of people experience this, is that there's 2020 brought on a lot of moments of solitude for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And then, so unless you had like this sort of like this network of individuals for you to connect with, you were kind of like processing things on your own,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
And so I think that what was expensive for me was not having, not continuing to cultivate a lot of those relationships from my past, from people that really invested in me. And so I'm kind of
Whoa.
doing that. I'm kind of doing that now, because I saw that I really needed those individuals that really took the time to, like, to speak into my life, to just be my friends. I think I recently spoke to a gentleman, you know, and he's also in the same journey and similar journey with me. He's a youth pastor too, and he was telling me about, like, he has, this opportunity now came to him to basically take the this particular ministry to another level. Now, he had stepped away from being a leader, and now he was given back the responsibility again. So now he's excited about all the potential that could come of just him, going all in on this thing. And then I said to him, I'm really happy for you. I'm really excited for you. And this is what I said to him. I'm really happy for you. I'm really excited for you. I can't wait to see what God does, what happens. But I want to just tell you something, and just being very, very frank with you. I'm not looking for ministry partners. I'm looking for friends.
Oh.
And
That's
yeah,
nice. I get it. I get it. I get it.
yeah, yeah. I'm like, look, man, I'm not, and I'll probably say this to in this way. I'm not looking for associates. I'm not looking for colleagues. I'm looking for friends.
Yeah.
And we can see Jesus doing that, right? So Jesus says, look, I don't call you my servants. I call you my friends. And I think all of us long for those types of relationships, of people that just really see you. Chanda, you can be yourself around them. I remember one of my friends, like back in like this was early 2000, Chanda, early 2000, and I was already doing ministry at a young age. I was leading worship. I was being given responsibilities to be a leader at a young age. Literally 19, and I was being put in a position to lead. And yet I was a reluctant leader because I didn't want to lead, but yet I had the ability to lead. So that
Yeah.
was my tension, wanting to lead and not wanting to lead at the same time, but knowing that I could. That was my tension. and then my one of my friends that I made that came in from the UK, this ministry that came in from the UK, and said to me, she said to me in these words, "But Erwin, but who's looking after Erwin?
Oh.
Like who's looking
Yeah.
who's looking after you? Like in other words, do you have people in your life that you're just yourself around? Like you don't have to be anything. You can just do you have people in
Yeah.
your life that you could just laugh with? You could just be yourself
You
and
can
be
be free.
you can be right, right. And I'm not saying that you're being inauthentic. Like
No,
it's
I
not
get it. I
it's
get
that
it.
like it's like you're not trying to impress someone all the time.
Right.
And so she really put me to task and saying to me, do you have friends in your life that
Yeah.
are just in it for you? And that kind of stayed with me. And that was like really early. I mean, like 19, man. Like that was too deep for me to even process. So I think about that now because then I realize, wow, do I have friendships in my life like that today? As and the thing is, as you get older, your ability to invite friendships into your life become less and less. I don't know if you realize that, if you kind of have seen
Huh.
that. Maybe that's just me. Maybe it's just me. But
I don't
you,
think it's just you.
but you're
I,
but yeah.
yeah. Okay, so I don't think it's just you. I say that because that has been the case for me generally, but I've been very intentional about
Yeah,
being
yeah.
more open. But you were saying though.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
but that's the thing though. It's like the people that you're comfortable with in your circle, those are the individuals that are in your circle, and you might not have room to let others in.
hmm,
And so I've gotten to a place. 2020 has put me in a place where I want to now, expand my tent of friendships. And I'm not
okay,
saying I want to have 20 friends. I'm just saying I want to have at least five to good 10 good friends that know me,
okay.
and I can be myself around, and like they and so it's something that I realized that in 2020 so many people felt that loneliness in that moment.
Yeah.
Like they felt like, oh my gosh, I thought I had friends, and
Oh,
it took isolation to realize that I really don't have friends.
it was the opposite for me. That's right. I was actually purging. I was like,
I know for you,
okay, girl.
like I need to cut out all these people.
It was the reason. It was like the opportunity for me to
I
just
need
be
to cut
like,
out all these people.
release, let
Yeah.
go.
No, for me it was like, oh my goodness, what have I done? I've shut out all
Mm.
these people over the years.
Oh
I,
no.
you know what I mean? Like because
Yeah.
what happens is what happens is as you start to kind of like develop your own rhythms of life, your own mission and
Yes.
goals. You start to have um, there are certain friendships that kind of stick around with you, and there are certain friendships that don't. And
Yeah.
so I realized that I have a lot of acquaintances in my life,
Dan.
and so I'm no longer looking for acquaintances. I really don't want any of them anymore. I want friendships. So
You want genuine.
when I was speaking to this young man, and he was so excited, I said to him, hey man, you know, I'm not looking for ministry partners. I'm looking for friends. And I said, because and the thing was like, I really was intentional. I said to him, hey, and this is how you know if they want to be friends or not, Chanda, is when you actually put a date to it, and you're saying, hey, let's get together and hang out
Okay.
Friday at 1 o'clock. And if they tell you, okay, let's connect, or we'll see you, or I'll see you when I see you, or yeah, let's do it. But they don't give you an actual date or time.
Yeah.
That's when you know that they're not really looking for friendship. They're not looking for friends. They're looking for acquaintances. In other
Partners.
words,
Okay.
they're looking for partners that can kind of get them from A to B.
Understood. Understood.
You know what I mean? And so you, it's like all of us need to have all of us need to have board of directors in our lives that just are
Yeah.
trying to make us succeed. You know what I mean? And so I think my intentionality is really just to kind of like um, really allow God to uh, really God really used 2020 to really just use certain friendships and relationships in my life in that way, where it's more intentional. And I'm thankful for the friendships and the relationships that God has brought to me. So but now, to your point, I want to be more intentional with those relationships. So, but 2020 was brutal for some of us, and I think for those that are struggling in terms of like friendships, it's like you got 4,000 friends on Instagram, but then you feel like you got no friends. You know.
Hey there. If you've come along this far, consider subscribing and also leave a rating. Thank you. Pastor Erwin, I want to just thank you so much
Very
for
welcome.
time. And I'll definitely circle back with you on this. I appreciate the conversation. Are there any last comments, things that you have going on that you want the audience to
Sure. Sure. Well, I'm in the middle of my graduate degree. I'm pursuing my MBA, like I said before. So I'm in the throes of that. There are a couple things that are in the works for me in terms of creativity. I'm actually working on a book. Believe it or not, working on a book, and I am also going to at some point revisit a lot of my musical projects that I've had that I started over the years. So at some point I'm going to take up back up my some of the musical projects that I've started. Hoping that I'll be able to release something of original work for me soon. So yeah, so those are two things that I got going on, just some writings and some music.
find you? Social media.
Oh yeah, sure. If you want to follow me and you want to be in the know and up to date with some of the things that are going on in my world, as a teen director, I'm currently a teen director at Christ Church, but I also am I get invited to do speaking engagements. I get invited to do music engagements. I'm actually leading for a college retreat at Pillar College, which is a Christian college in Newark, New Jersey. They have various campuses in New Jersey. So I'm invited to do the worship retreat for their students. So I'll be the leading worship leader in the beginning of the segment. So those are some things that if you want to follow me, you can follow me at Instagram on at Erwin Erwin J Rodriguez. That's my Instagram handle. If you want to follow me on Facebook, you can follow me at Erwin Rodriguez. I think that's how I'm listed in Facebook. Facebook is still a bit of a mystery to me now, but Instagram is probably what I use the most. I'm on Twitter, Erwin J Rodriguez. I'm on Twitter as well. So if you want to follow any of those handles, maybe Chanda, I'll probably send them to Chanda. Chanda can maybe, if you're doing any editing, you can probably put them anywhere around here. Yeah. That's it.
We are wrapping up episode 2. Thank you so much for joining us. To keep in touch with Erwin Rodriguez, please check the show notes. This is Where Process Meets Application, and I am Chanda-Louise. Talk to you next time.